Wasco County, Oregon. Wide, open, and desolate. Few people know it exists, and even fewer people reside here. Yet the rugged Central Oregon County was the setting of one of the most unusual true stories of the 1980s, featuring spies, murder plots, and an act of bioterrorism. In 1981, Indian guru Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh purchased roughly 125 square miles of land in Central Oregon with the intent of building a commune that would live by his teachings. As the commune, known as Rajneeshpuram, grew, so did tension with local residents and the state of Oregon. Conflict between Rajneeshpuram and its opponents ran for 4 continuous years until it all came to a dramatic close in 1985. The Rajneesh movement began in the city of Pune, India in 1974 when Bhagwan Rajneesh began to speak at the Pune ashram. By then, he had written several books and developed a following. Calling themselves sannyasins, his adherents practiced meditation, yoga, ecstatic movement, and group therapy. The followers viewed Rajneesh as a divine person with cosmic powers. Soon Rajneesh and his closest followers created the Rajneesh Foundation, which raised money by providing emotional therapy to the pilgrimagers. The Pune ashram in its prime operated in a similar manner to how Rajneeshpuram later would. In 1981, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh left India. The government had become increasingly suspicious of the Pune ashram, and accusations of tax fraud and smuggling surfaced. The guru abruptly fled to America and was granted a temporary visa. In an effort to seclude themselves, the Rajneesh Foundation soon purchased land in Central Oregon called the Big Muddy Ranch. The sprawling property was made up of roughly 100 square miles of deeded land and another 26.5 square miles of leased BLM land. The 64,000 acres of remote western countryside would become the unlikely site of an eastern utopia. At the center of the deal was Ma'anad Sheila, another Indian native who served as Bhagwan's personal secretary and was president of the foundation. When she saw the Big Muddy Ranch, she thought it was the perfect place to start the commune.
Wherever Bhagwan is, it's a beautiful land, beautiful heaven.
One of the first changes they made to the ranch was the installment of 54 mobile homes in August of 1981. Initially, they claimed that only 50 people would be living on the entire ranch. Each new home could hold 14 people, however, and hundreds of people now poured onto the property. A loophole in Oregon zoning laws allowed a large number of people to live on a property for agricultural purposes, so the Rajneesh claimed the residents would simply be farm workers. When county planners inspected the ranch, Sheila and other powerful Rajneeshis, as they were called, dressed plainly without their normal shades of red, and talked of operating a farm commune. When asked if they were a religious organization, Sheila responded, "We celebrate life and laughter. We are simple farmers." Over the course of the next year, one planner, Dan Duro, routinely traveled to the ranch to monitor progress. He soon found that there were more people living there than originally reported, and he relayed this information to the governor. The state of Oregon had already become more proactive in dealing with the Rajneeshis. Governor Victor Atiyeh instructed the Oregon State Police to monitor their group. A small police office was established near the entrance of the commune, and officers disguised as members of Rajneeshpuram spied on the community and reported their findings to the governor. Members of the commune happily paid a monthly fee of $250 for room and board, and new arrivals willingly gave up their life savings and possessions to the commune. Some of the funds were used to purchase 93 Rolls-Royces, Rajneesh's favorite car. The guru in daily drive-bys would motor by the citizens of Rajneeshpuram as they piled along the road to catch a glimpse of their divine leader. Rajneesh no longer delivered public speeches and spent most of his days secluded in a house in the far corner of the commune. As the town of Rajneeshpuram grew, so did opposition. In 1982, the members of the nearby tiny community of Antelope became increasingly angry with the newcomers. Earlier, in late 1981, the Rajneeshis learned that to accomplish some of their goals, such as building a printing press, zoning laws insisted that they had to be inside city limits. They had tried to incorporate themselves as a city earlier in the year, but the state had denied them due to them being a religious organization, lacking church and state separation. As a result, they began to send people to live in Antelope, a town about 40 miles away. The town was soon flooded with Rajneeshis. In April 1982, the original citizens of Antelope became so alarmed that they held a meeting to disincorporate the city. The Rajneeshis needed Antelope to remain incorporated to benefit from it, so dozens registered to vote in Antelope, blocking the movement. By 1983, Rajneeshis sat on the city council. They started to rename sites throughout the town, and most notoriously, they renamed the town itself to Rajneesh. In 1983, state police pinpointed specific illegal activities amongst the Rajneeshis, including immigration fraud. The federal government was now investigating a discrepancy in Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh's visa. 3 years earlier, he had stated on his application that his stay would be temporary, but he was still in the country. Information also surfaced that some leaders of Rajneeshpuram had been spying on commune residents, bugging the entire city of Rajneeshpuram, including Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, and recording conversations. Bhagwan had not been told of the bugging, and in spring of 1984, the guru confronted Sheila and lectured her, insisting that he should be the center of the commune and the one making decisions. In 1983, Mahanad Sheila and other leaders of the commune had lost patience with the perceived targeting from the state and locals, and they decided that they needed to eliminate their opposition. Most members of Rajneeshpuram had no idea that their leaders were plotting their first acts of bioterrorism. Soon, members of the cult created a mixture that would sicken massive amounts of people. Biological attacks began occurring in the area. In 1984, 2 county commissioners who had toured Rajneeshpuram became seriously ill. The Rajneeshis had offered them water that had been intentionally contaminated. The Rajneeshis denied the poisoning, writing to a poison commissioner, "It was a simple act of human kindness on that sweltering day. Now you are making a hysterical accusation that you were poisoned." The same year, a member of the community moved north to the Dalles, the county seat with a population of nearly 11,000 people, where she would attempt a run for county office. In order to get her elected, the Rajneeshis hoped to keep Wasco County voters from turning out on election day. They targeted several salad bars at local restaurants. At each of the eateries, a light brown mixture containing salmonella was dumped into salad bars. Over 700 people came down with the illness. In 1985, the Rajneeshis prepared to commit murder. They had several targets in mind. They considered gunning down the U.S. Attorney for Oregon, and also began planning the murder of Dave Frohnmeyer, the state's Attorney General, but neither plan was acted upon. In the spring of 1985, James Comini, a Wasco County Commissioner, was recovering from an ear surgery at a Portland hospital. Manad Puja, an operative behind the salad bar poisonings, snuck into the hospital carrying a syringe filled with a mixture that would stop Comini's heart. The plan was to inject it into his IV, but upon reaching his room, it was discovered that Comini was not on an IV. Puja rushed away, and once again the Rajneeshis had failed to commit a murder that they had planned. Rajneeshpuram began to fall apart in the fall of 1985. Mahanad Sheila, along with her aides, suddenly disappeared from the country. The divine leader was hurt by the betrayal, and in revenge began to speak publicly. Bhagwan Rajneesh had been silent in the public eye for 3 years, and he now spoke openly of the wrongdoings.
But Sheila, while I was in isolation, has created few things which have to be withdrawn.
4 weeks later, the Bhagwan attempted to leave the country as well. He boarded a private jet and attempted a getaway. The FBI tracked Rajneesh and approximated where the aircraft would have to land.
When he landed to refuel, one of the sources says that there was another jet that was going to take him to the Bahamas, so he'd be outside of the United States. They arrested him right there.
On October 28, 1985, Bhagwan Rajneesh was arrested for his immigration violations. With both the Bhagwan and Sheila out of the commune, Rajneeshpuram began to crumble, and by mid-1986, the commune was completely abandoned. In November 1985, the original residents of Antelope voted unanimously to change their town's name back to Antelope, but the remnants of Rajneeshpuram still exist today. The buildings that the Rajneeshis had built for their city still stand where they were constructed, though their only purpose now is to house summer campers, since the ranch was purchased by a Christian youth organization in 1996. The name Rajneeshpuram still can be found in the United States record books as well, but for the wrong reasons. The Rajneeshis' attack on Wasco County voters in 1984 remains the largest act of bioterrorism in the country to this day. Attitudes in Oregon towards those who were historically viewed as outsiders have changed since the 1980s. The state is now viewed as one of the most accepting states in the country. Sheila had always claimed that the Rajneeshis' rights were violated while they resided in Central Oregon, and she claimed that people discriminated against them based on the religion they practiced. Today, the Rajneeshis would no doubt be dealt with differently, and perhaps if they would have not been so deceitful early on, they would have been accepted more by the locals, and they wouldn't have needed to turn to such violence. Today, the rural Oregon landscape where these dramatic events played out remains unchanged. Little evidence shows that this most unlikely conflict occurred in this most remote of places.